The glance of power. A dervish who had studied at the feet of a great Sufi teacher was told to perfect his knowledge of the sensing exercise, and then to return to his master for further instruction. He retired to a forest and concentrated upon inner meditations with great force and application, until hardly anything could disturb him. He had, however, not concentrated well enough upon the need to keep all his objectives equally in his heart, and his zeal to succeed in his exercise proved somewhat stronger than his resolve to return to the school from which he had been sent to meditate. Thus it was that one day, while he was concentrating upon his inner self, a slight sound caught his ear. Annoyed at this, the dervish looked upwards into the branches of a tree from which the sounds seemed to come, and saw a bird. The thought crossed his mind that this bird had no right to interrupt the exercises of so dedicated a man. No sooner had he conceived this idea than the bird dropped dead at his feet. Now the dervish was not sufficiently advanced in the path of Sufihood to realize that there are tests all the way along the road. All that he could see at that moment was that he had attained a power such as he had never had before. He could kill a living thing, or it might even be that the bird had been killed by some force other than one within himself, and all because it had interrupted his devotions. I must indeed be a great Sufi, thought the dervish. He got up and started to walk towards the nearest town. When he got there, he saw an elegant house and decided to ask there for something to eat. When the door was opened by a woman at his knock, the dervish said, "Woman, bring me food, for I am an advanced dervish, and there is merit in feeding those who are on the path." "As soon as I can, revered sage," answered the lady, and she disappeared within. But quite a long time passed, and still the woman did not come back. With each moment that passed, the dervish became more and more impatient. When the woman returned, he said to her, "Consider yourself lucky that I do not direct upon you the wrath of the dervish. For does not everyone know that ill fortune can come through disobedience of the elect?" "Ill fortune can indeed come, unless one is unable to resist it through some experiences of one's own," said the woman. "How dare you answer me like that?" the dervish shouted. "And what, in any case, do you mean?" "I only mean," said the woman, "that I am not a bird in a forest clearing." At these words, the dervish was astounded. "My wrath is not harming you, and you can even read my thoughts," he spluttered. And he begged the woman to become his teacher. "If you have disobeyed your own original teacher, you will fail me too," said the woman. "Well, at least tell me how you reached a stage of understanding so much greater than mine," asked the dervish. "By obeying my teacher. He told me to attend his lectures and his exercises when he called me. Otherwise, I was to regard my worldly tasks as my exercises. In this way, though I have not heard from him for years, my inner life has constantly expanded, giving me such powers as you have seen, and many others." The dervish returned to the tekia of his teacher for further guidance. The master refused to allow him to discuss anything, but merely said when he appeared, "Go and serve under a certain scavenger who cleans the streets in such and such a town." Because the dervish held his teacher in such high regard, he went to that town. But when he arrived at the place where the scavenger worked, and saw him standing there covered in filth, he recoiled from approaching him, and could not imagine himself as his servant. As he stood there irresolutely, the scavenger said, calling him by his name, "Lajawad, what bird would you kill today? Lajawad, what woman may read your thoughts today? Lajawad, what revolting duty will your teacher impose upon you tomorrow? Lajawad asked him, How can you see into my mind? How can a scavenger do things which pious hermits cannot do? Who are you? The scavenger said, Some pious hermits can do these things, but they do not do them for you because they have other things to do. To you I look like a scavenger because that is my occupation. Because you do not like the work, you do not like the man. Because you imagine that holiness is washing and squatting and meditation, you will never find it. I have attained my present capacities because I never thought about holiness. I thought about duty. When people teach you duty to a master or duty to something sacred, they are teaching you duty, you fool. All you can see is the duty to man or duty to the temple. Because you cannot concentrate upon duty, you are as good as lost. And Lajawad, when he was able to forget that he was the servant of a scavenger, and realized that being a servant was a duty, became the man we know as the enlightened, the miracle-working, the rarely perfumed Sheikh Abdurazak Lajawadi of Badakhshan.